Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's me, Ken from Digital Pizza. I know it's been a while since my last review, but I've been a little bit busy. No real excuse, but this game just felt like the right game for me to come back with. Um, it's going to be a little bit less polished of a review than it should be, because I think it was about halfway through the game that I actually decided to do the review in the first place. So it's not like I have those initial impressions notes that I usually like to write down, or what made me happy, what made me sad, what made me mad. Um, but I am going to try to give you a good, full, complete, and honest perspective on this game. So without further ado, here we go. All right, guys, so let's get right into it. You've probably read articles from GameSpot or from IGN or wherever that have given this game praise left and right. IGN even rated this game a 9.6 out of 10. I think they're being unrealistic. I think they're, hyping the game up way too much. The game did a lot of good things. In my opinion, it took the Soulsborne franchise and moved it forward a little bit because it implemented a storyline which, although existed in the Souls games, was extremely vague and hard to find, and you really had to dig to get to it. When you have a storyline and you're questing and you're trying to accomplish something, it gives you a little bit of an incentive to play the next level and move forward. So in that respect, I appreciate this game. I think it did a great job. I'm going to rate it pretty highly at the end, but I'm not going to give it the unrealistic, unreasonable scores that other people have given it because it does have several flaws. So, the basic idea of the game is you're a white guy from London. You travel across the seas to try to rescue your guardian spirit that was stolen from you by this guy named Kelly. When you get to Japan, it's feudal era Japan, late 1500s, early 1600s, and there's a massive civil war going on, and you become involved in that civil war. As you kill bad guys, you get Amrita, which is this game's currency. It's basically like your souls or blood or whatever it is from your Soulsborne games, and you use this Amrita as your currency to level up. And it's it's a pretty standard concept at that point, but it's a good game. I mean, when you hype it up to the level that people do, sort of like with No Man's Sky. Actually, No Man's Sky was a game that was a pretty fun game, but when people gave it the hype that they gave it, it was hard to enjoy it at that level because you expected so much more. And yes, a lot of it is their own fault because they said that certain aspects and elements of the game would exist but did not. Yeah, it had faults, but no matter how good that game was, it never would have lived up to the hype. I feel like this is not that type of a game. It's not like I was waiting for it for 8 years, Final Fantasy VII kind of a thing, but this was a game where I saw it and I was excited, and I saw the reviews or the ratings, and when I saw 9.6, I was like, oh, holy cow, I need to play this game right now. And it was a good game. It's not 9.6. All right, guys, so combat in this game is something I have very mixed emotions about, right? On one hand, I love the idea of it. Huge positives. The ability to change your stance, for example. Um, you'll have these little yokai with pickaxes that sometimes run around on the ground, and when they're running around on the ground, if you use a middle swing, you'll miss. And so the ability to change into a low stance, to always hit him when he's on the ground, and then to be able to change your mind later on and be like, oh, this is a mini umibozu slime, where if he comes at me and misses and I dodge out of the way, he's going to leave his little white or his little yellow spot exposed so that you can hit him one time for a critical hit, right? If you hit him with a mid slash, you're not going to kill him in one hit. So what do? You change it to a high slash and you go crashing down on the guy. You kill him in one hit, save some time. You don't need to use talismans. It's just the thinking process that goes on in your head when you're playing this game is good. You're excited because just the concept of being able to change your stances, and not just change your stances, but also change your weapons. Say, okay, I feel like I need a little bit more range. I'm going to use a spear here. I'm going to use a katana here. I'm going to use dual swords, whatever. And then to take that even a step further and recognize that the drops that you're getting have a little bit of randomization into it. So it has a little bit of a like a Diablo 2, Diablo 3 aspect to it, where you have some RNG involved as far as your drops are concerned. So you have white, green, blue, purple, epic equipment that can drop down, and but it gives you incentive to keep hunting for things, because maybe you'll want to search for a certain substat that you really want. Maybe you want to wear very little amounts of armor, and if you do that, you want a substat that says damage increases according to less armor, or damage increases according to your familiarity with the weapon, or damage increases depending upon this, that, the other, a certain stat that you have, spirit, body, whatever. Those substats are very, very, very sought after. So you might be searching for that so that you can deal more damage. But so like the concepts and the ideas were really there in this game. Just feel like the way that they were implemented, just it wasn't ready. Um, for example, the hit boxes, right? So you got these yokai that you're fighting. Some of them got little horns, and when you slash a horn off, it deals a critical hit and it stuns the guy. He falls down on the ground, and then you slam down and you deal massive amounts of damage, right? You would expect to critical hit somebody and knock one of their horns off, and sometimes it would work and sometimes it wouldn't, and sometimes it felt like it wasn't your own fault that it didn't happen for you. Or sometimes it would happen and you didn't expect it. And you'd be like, how the hell did I get a crit? So, but not just that kind of an instance, where it's very, very small hitbox. There's also times where you're rolling behind an enemy to hit them from the back so you deal increased damage. And there would be times where you expected to see the bigger numbers and they just weren't there. And then there'd be times where you just didn't have the timing right, and you'd be hitting them from the side. And even though you were hitting them from the side when it shouldn't have done the increased damage, it did the increased damage. Just felt like the combat itself, although the elements were there, the implementation of those elements was not flawless. Like it would have been in Dark Souls, where if you died, you knew it was your fault. Here you'll have some dude spinning through the air and crashing down, and you will be running and planning for when he lands so that you can get some extra damage in. And this happened to me several times. It was extremely frustrating, so I apologize for getting angry. But that jerk would fall down on the ground, and I would be standing next to him ready to deal damage, and it would annihilate me and deal like 2 or 3,000 damage, and I would grit my teeth and I'd say, how did he hit me? How? I still can't get over it, because there's certain instances in this game where it doesn't make sense. The Tengu are frustrating. The rolling balls of fire are frustrating. There's just certain points in time where you just wish it worked a little bit better. Alright, so exploration is one of the parts of this game that performed above and below the Soulsborne types of games at the same time. So they added incentive for you to explore, right? Which is great. They have these little Kodama guys, little mushroom top head things, that give you little boosts. So in each region, you have maybe 25 of them to collect. And so there's you could get an increase in the Amrita or the souls or whatever that you're earning, or increased item drops, or you could get your elixirs, your healing items more frequently. So there are some cool things about their exploration that they added, such as that, because it gave you incentive to search all the areas before moving on. And I love that. I mean, genuinely appreciate that because a lot of people could get caught up in one of these types of games and get into the speed rushing mentality where they're like, oh, well, um, you know, I only want to do the main quests and not the side quests, and I want to rush through it in 96 minutes. But it gives the leisurely player um, the incentive to enjoy each level to its fullest. There's 9 Kodama in this level, right? If you haven't found all 9, you haven't explored the level well enough. So you keep looking around and you enjoy that level before you move on. Like other Soulsborne types of games, there are shortcuts that you can unlock as you progress through the level. But in my opinion, um, these levels, just the way that they were built, you almost didn't really want. I mean, the shortcuts weren't worth it really, because the shortcuts were either too early or too late, um, and a lot of times you were more feared of going to the shrine and um, refreshing all the enemies than you were of dying, and because usually you could tell when the boss door was going to come. And if you could tell when the boss door was going to come, you knew, okay, well, I've collected all my Kodama, I've cleared the area, everything's safe. Now I'll hit up the shrine and then I'll go tackle the boss. But if unlocked a shortcut and then used the shrine, then all those bad guys are back, and maybe does more harm than good because a lot of times there's traps where you fall and so on and so forth. I don't know. The level designs excuse me, the level designs are pretty good, and I will say one of the benefits of this game is that because you're traveling from one region to the next, one location to the next, one compartmentalized location to the next compartmentalized location, they can build really high quality zones or little mini worlds that are enjoyable. And you can have the different atmospheres. You can have a snow level versus a hot level versus a whatever level, and it all kind of makes sense because you're traveling around. And so the different atmospheres and the different color palettes that you can use, it's all within the realm of possibility. Whereas with Dark Souls, because it's one world, and you have to physically walk from the next location to the next location to the next location, it makes a little less sense when they try to change the atmosphere on you. So in that aspect, this game does have a little bit of a benefit over Dark Souls. But you know me, I've mentioned it before in my previous review of Dark Souls 3. I'm just a big fan of that perfect use of the three-dimensional space and how one world comes together like in Dark Souls, and you physically feel that wonder when you move on to the next level, or the next area. So, another negative aspect of this game's exploration is the fact that the levels can feel a little bit repetitive. Not the main missions. The main missions are unique and interesting and fun. I mean, except for that stupid Umibozu uh, level. The boss itself wasn't difficult, but the fact that everything was very easy to fall off the edge, you couldn't really roll in battle. I didn't appreciate that level design very much, running around the rooftops, and just didn't do it for me. The next level, the spider level, although the spider boss was one of the easiest bosses in the entire game, um, the level design itself was really exciting for me. I loved it. So I'm losing my train of thought here, but the the submissions or side quests or whatever, they basically just rehashed your main missions. maybe put up some boulders so that you can explore the entire area. But it was basically you take a portion of your main mission and you're doing it again. Um, and so in that aspect, it could get a little bit repetitive. But I understand why they did what they did, because sometimes players would die a couple times, lose their souls a couple times, and Emrita, sorry, and these side quests or side missions would give you an opportunity to collect enough Amrita and gain enough levels to remain level appropriate. So I get it, but for a completionist, when you're trying to do everything, it can be a little repetitive. I'm sorry. Um, it is what it is. So while adding a story was a great addition to a Soulsborne type of a game, I feel like the story was extremely bland. Um, I'm sure you could think off the top of your head even 10 games or more that have this concept. You run to catch up to a boss, and when you catch up to the boss, he grants powers to somebody, whether they transform, whether they get stronger, whatever. He grants powers to somebody and then runs away. You fight the guy that was given powers, and then you move on to try to catch up to him again. You catch up to him, and you fight another guy that was given powers, and then the guy runs away, and you got to go catch up. So it's very repetitive and generic storyline where you're trying to catch the bad guy, and you're always fighting his minions that he's created somehow. So in that regard, the story itself, I don't really care about. It's not a great story. It's a very bland, boring story. But the idea of having a story in these types of games is where it's at. It's one of the biggest drawbacks of the Soulsborne types of games, and this is probably the main reason why people are falling in love with the game. Adding a story element to it just sets the precedent so that all future games that are created of Soulsborne types of games will probably now have a story, and hopefully an improved story. I'm not saying we're going to get Final Fantasy IX out of it, but I am saying that when we have a story, we are going to be more connected to the characters, more interested in the next level, the next development, and we're going to enjoy the game that much more. So, this game has a story. That's the big news. I mean, I wish I could make you feel that sense of impact. Like, it's not, this is a great story. It's, this game has a story. Other Dark Souls games, you gotta dig deep to get to that story and understand what's going on and read the lore. And it's BS. It's just a really, really well developed game with cool, badass enemies and polished combat. Soulsborne types of games are incredible, but they don't have an immersive story. That's the one piece of the pie that they've always been missing. And this game makes it so that future games will not miss that piece of the pie. And damn well better have a better storyline than this one. So, it's not about the quality of the story that makes me happy. It's simply the fact that a story exists that makes me happy. Okay, so leveling system, skills, etc. I am going to admit it. This is probably one of the best aspects of the game, um, other than the fact that a story exists. Um, as you level up, you are going to realize that it's very well balanced. Um, I I can honestly say I didn't have to replay any levels, so I finished all the side quests and the main missions, and I felt like finishing those levels was the perfect amount of experience to gain to move on. I never felt like I was over leveled, overpowered. I never felt like I was falling behind to where I would need to play levels again. I feel like the balance between how many souls or how much Amrita you needed to level up and how much you were gaining from the enemies that you're playing at your current stage was balanced so right that you didn't get ahead or behind where the game wanted you to be, unless you really worked hard at it, which I didn't do. I just wanted to enjoy the game as it was meant to be played, and I feel like they did an awesome job there. And you know, if you're curious about how to build your character, don't worry about it. They have plenty of cheap reincarnation books or whatever, so that you can re-roll your character, change the skill ups, and so on and so forth. And it's really, you're not penalized that much for it. And I don't really have any complaints about the leveling system. Take that back. I do have a complaint about the skill trees. So you have a skill tree for katanas, for your everything, right down to your spears, and then you have two extra ones, one for your Omio magic and one for your ninjutsu. So you're throwing your ninja stars or you're casting your magic. These skill trees, too complicated. Um, a lot of the skills are duplicates even. So you would buy the same skill for low stance, for mid stance, and for high stance. And while these skills in their implementation are cool, being able to take your sheath and hit somebody in a surprise and then slash them a couple times. I mean, there's some cool skills, but there's just so many to purchase. It gets convoluted and messy, and it actually disincentivizes you to try out new things because you're pretty much just pegging yourself, and you're like, well, if I use my reincarnation scroll, I'm gonna have to buy these all over again. And there's just so many of them. Very small complaint, small smudge in a nearly flawless system, in my opinion. I love the leveling system, and there was enough soft caps, I suppose, to where you would recognize instinctively when to stop putting skill ups into one certain stat and start putting it into something else. So, like for example, your body or your hit points. You start off gaining something like 35 hit points per level, and then it drops down to 25, 20, 15. So as that starts dropping off, you stop valuing that stat as much because it's, oh, I'm only going to get 15, but if I level up this, I get 3 attack into this and 4 attack into that, plus 10 hit points. So that becomes more valuable. So just the way that they balance the soft caps to make you a more balanced character was instinctive enough to where you don't need to look online to find out how to build your character. The experience of leveling up your character gives you the knowledge to level up your character, which is a really high quality system. I loved it. Just didn't care for the skills. Not the skills themselves, the skill trees. But great job, guys. So the final verdict, guys. Well, I think that this game pushed the genre forward, and I truly appreciate the game. I still want to acknowledge that not everything was put together flawlessly. And in my opinion, you really need that for something to be rated 9.6 IGN. And I'm the kind of person where, as a fan of Soulsborne types of games and the genre of game that exists, I don't want to rate it super highly simply because I don't want my bias to show through here. I love the game. I love these types of games. But loving the type of game doesn't make it one of the best or the best of that type of game. You have the Tengu, well, make you want to slit your wrists. You have frustrations of not hitting the hitboxes when you think you did. You have sometimes glitching out where you walk through a fog, and that's when one of the yokai are supposed to appear. and it just doesn't trigger, so you have to go back to a shrine and come back, and then it'll trigger. There's just so many little glitches and flaws, frame rate issues that just make you feel like it's just not quite there. It's not ready. And you know, even if you look at some online comments, um, you'll see some people say, "Oh, well, I specifically didn't use the sloth talisman because it's too overpowered." Well, if you have to specifically go out of your way to not use a portion of the game because it makes it too easy, there's just some parts of the game there that just weren't quite ready for the release. I myself used the sloth talisman in one level, the double Tengu level, because I pigeonholed myself. I wanted to use katana. I wanted to be a samurai, a regular old samurai. So my main weapon was a katana. My alternate weapon was two mini kodachis or whatever. Um, and so I didn't go the axe spear route. I didn't invest a lot of time or money into developing my ninjutsu or my magic skills. So I didn't have these insane buffs and debuffs that I would apply before I ran into battle. I just sort of played the game. Um, and because of that, my style of play just didn't deal enough damage fast enough to take out one of the Tengu birds before the other one appeared. Had to use the sloth talisman. Maybe I need to get good. I don't know. But the simple fact is that there are aspects of this game, such as the sloth talisman, that are not balanced with the rest of the game. There are glitches, there are flaws. And because of these, I don't feel like we can give it a 9.6 out of 10. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10. And part of me wants to give it a 7 because of the flaws. But I need to give it that 8 simply so that you guys recognize that I recognize that it's a great game. It's just not what IGN says it is. I do hope you buy it. I do hope you play it. I do hope you enjoy it. I enjoyed it. 8 out of 10, guys. Not 9.6, 8. And P.S., guys, Horizon Zero Dawn would be far less enjoyable if I didn't play this game first. Keep that in mind if you're deciding which of the two to buy, or if you're thinking about playing one before the other. Because Horizon Zero Dawn, I'm only level 20, just started playing the game recently, but my initial impression is that this game is way too easy. So if I had not played Nioh first, if I had not had a challenge first, this game would have been miserable. But because I did have that challenge, now I'm in the mood for a relaxed playthrough where I'm enjoying the beauty and the simplicity. So before you make a decision between those games, take this little PS. Play Nioh first, and then you'll really appreciate Horizon Zero Dawn because I'm noticing the difference myself. Have a great guy. Have a great day, guys. I'm so stupid.